Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of CXpert Share, the podcast for real subject matter experts talking about real issues that face the contact center industry. And there's no shortage of knowledge today as my CXpert joining me. Daniel, how you doing, man?
Brandon, I'm doing great. Are you sure that you got the right guy for this?
Oh,
CX?
I got trust me.
Okay.
You and I go way back, so I know I've got the right guy for this one. But for some people who might not be familiar with this space, why don't you give us a little background on yourself and White Oak so we can catch them up to speed.
Yeah, so I'm based in Birmingham, Alabama, the booming tech metropolis that is Birmingham,
That
right?
is
Hey,
Birmingham.
don't
Yeah.
laugh. We're trying to make this the hot spot. This is the Silicon Valley of the South, baby. We're
There you
trying to do
go.
something big in Birmingham. So I run a tech consulting agency. We're full stack for mid-market and enterprise organizations. And we like helping people modernize their IT infrastructure. We're unique in that we're vendor agnostic. And so that means we work for end users. And our goal is to clearly define and identify your unique requirements, and then we want to pair that with solutions, whether it's a product or a service or professional services, so that we can deliver the correct outcome that you as an end user define. Yeah, so we're relatively new. I founded the business in September of 2022.
Mhm.
So relatively new. It was my dream to do this.
Mhm.
I've always wanted to, and I thought that it would be tumbleweeds in a man box. And it would take me years to try and build it, but we've been really fortunate and blessed. And we're up to
Mhm.
5 folks in our staff now. We're coast to coast with our client base. It's been an incredible journey, man. I'm having so much fun building this thing.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we're gonna jump right into it because you have a specialty, and one of the things I wanted to cover with our podcast is we're gonna get into certain industries. So we're gonna do an industry breakdown, and I'm sure a lot of people are waiting for this one. We're gonna talk about credit unions, FinServe, and the banking industry. And the reason I find this interesting is because I remember when I was a consultant starting off, we no offense to my audience, but we thought the banking industry was never going to move into the 20th century. We thought they were never going to move into cloud and more advanced technology. So I'm excited because this is an exciting time for them. And so I want to get into it, but I guess we should do a little bit of background. I don't want to put you on the spot for the whole industry, but we say banking and we say FinServe and we say credit unions, but they function really differently. Bankings and credit unions. So if you can tackle a little bit of the nuances there, just so the audience knows that you have the expertise in this area. So when we start diving into it, and for people who don't know, who maybe want to look into this industry, give me a little bit of the background on the different variations.
Yeah, certainly. So one of the key distinctions between banks and credit unions, and so again, we're full stack IT consultants. That means that we take on cybersecurity products, projects, infrastructure, and of course CX. With between banks and credit unions, you have major compliance or
Mhm.
regulatory needs that hit banks extremely hard, and they're much more, and no offense to the credit unions, but they're a bit more relaxed on the credit union side of the house. And so we see drastic deviations in the way they approach security. Um, Also, with credit unions, like for example, you don't call them customers. They're not customers, Brandon. They're members. So
Uh-huh.
what you're going to see from all of the engagements, interactions, the services offered by credit unions is there's this like small town Mayberry kind of feel that they're trying to create because customer service is at the pinnacle. Like creating that connection with their members is paramount to success in the credit union. I actually think that's a really noble cause, and it's what makes
Mhm.
credit unions valuable for our communities. So drastic differences in compliance, major differences in the way they approach their customers. But with credit unions, we do not see them quite as progressive as what we see with like a large or very regional bank that has a
Mm.
incredible footprint.
Okay.
So, for example, I live in Alabama. Alabama, this might sound crazy to you, but we're about 10 years behind urban metro areas in terms of IT adoption and modernization.
Mm-hmm.
Credit unions feel like they're a bit encapsulated as well in that delay or in being progressive with their IT. So I think there's probably a few reasons for that. Credit unions historically spend less on IT staff. So, I mean,
Okay.
that's really important. It's crucial, right? So you've got less resources to handle and tackle your needs. You're also dealing with legacy platforms and systems. So, for example, core banking solutions like your Jack Henry, your Fiserv, on and on and on. Like those
Oh,
platforms they're expensive, man. They're a pain in the butt to manage, and they're
wow.
difficult to transition away from and implement a new solution. As a result, you tend to see legacy platforms and system last for a really long time inside of credit unions. And so um, multiple systems begin to age out. And as a result, credit unions are in major need of modernization. And I can keep going on this topic all day if you want.
Yeah, no, I mean that's I mean I intentionally meant to put you on the spot because this is that as an industry breakdown, I want I want the audience to understand that there are because sometimes in the space we have a tendency to think even though all businesses are different, we have a tendency to think like our specific operation is unique and no one will really understand it. But there are some things that are mega impacts or universal impacts in certain industries. And certainly when you're talking banking and credit unions, the regulations are a big part of it. What even the more lax regulations that may impact a credit union still may be more regulations than a retail company has or store or something like that. So it definitely impacts it. When I was you had me thinking as you were breaking that down, I was thinking back to years ago when I was one of the churches I belonged to actually had a credit union, and I joined the credit union and actually got a loan from them for one of the first cars that I bought. But like you said, it was more of a community feel. Like we had meetings and stuff. I don't remember having any meetings with my bank, but I but I had meetings with the credit union and stuff like that. Um, how do you so given the industry as a whole that it has been that's been slow to change and adopt technology, and then like you said, some of it is even regional, like the southeast. But you've taken it upon yourself, man. Like you're gonna pioneer. You're attempting to drive this industry into the newer technology. What are some of your I mean, frankly, what are some of your points? What are some of your selling points? What are some of the things you say to business owners, project managers, contact center leaders at a credit union that they're probably not thinking about that they should think about that'll possibly get them to think more about I could possibly get better technology or better operationally.
Yeah, certainly. So we covered this before we went live, but the pandemic was like you strapped a rocket to contact centers, right? And it sent it to the moon. We saw call volumes all volumes went through the roof through all channels, right? And so we had to have modern tools to keep up with all the demand simultaneously as we watched a strain with staffing take place. So the pandemic was really good for all things CX as a result. It was also good in that it has forced credit unions to take a really good look at what they're doing for their customer experience. So, and the audience is really going to resonate with this. We're, of course, in the age of the consumerization of IT. Like if we think about our kids, my son is 13, right? He's growing up digitally native, right?
Yeah.
Which essentially means he always has a screen or the internet at his disposal within reason and within bounds since he
Mm-hmm.
was a small child. So when you look at the member base of a credit union, typically they're a bit older, right? So they attract an older generation, a very mature generation of end users. But
Mm-hmm.
here's what we know about folks that are over 60, over 50, they're the least likely to take out loans or to take out a new credit card.
Hmm.
That means that a credit union is making the least amount of profit and the least amount of revenue off of their primary base of members.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So that could be a crisis for credit unions if they don't modernize and create new channels and avenues by which they attract younger generations. So you look at millennials, for example. So you're born in the early 80s through the early 2000s. Statistically, we know you prefer a digital channel. You're looking for some self-service and you want to multitask. So, for example, if I've got to talk to my bank or my credit union, I don't want to call somebody. Like, I got stuff to do, man. I got a job. I'm trying to, like, I'm busy.
Exactly.
You know what I want to do? I want to chat you while I'm in a meeting. In fact, that's what I'm doing
Yes.
now, Brandon. I'm chatting.
Yes. Because we're multitaskers, man. We want to get
Yeah.
stuff done.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
now, if you're not offering those services as a credit union, you're instantaneously missing out on your younger base or your younger audience who is in
Mm.
need of a car loan, right? Who needs a home loan, who needs these types of services. They would genuinely benefit from the communal aspect of a credit union. That's the
Mhm.
type of service they need, but credit unions have to meet them where they are. We're in
Right.
a new age, like the pandemic is forcing organizations to be honest about the channels and the mechanism by which they communicate with their customers. So ultimately,
Yeah.
I'd say this is a good thing for credit unions.
So if you in that same situation, if I'm a credit union, what's the internal conversation, or what's the selling points when I like you said, I might not be making a lot of the money off of the fees because my primary customer isn't really doing those things that generate revenue for me. So of course I have to be more efficient in my interact so that I can track the other customers. But what kind of things could you point to if I'm a manager of a credit union, support team, and I want different technology. But there's people above me, right? Who they're going to be focused on the small margin. They're going to be focused on not spending money, right? And but to your point, there are definite benefits available to me. And can you help me actually even in that conversation with them, or what points that what a couple things you think I need to share with them to kind of get them to see like, hey, this is worth the investment.
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that we do as an organization, quick plug for my business,
Let's
is
do it.
we do mini assessments, right? Like, and hey, Brandon, there's no charge. So I'll come in for half a day, full day, and I will observe your contact center, your workflows. I'll interview your stakeholders, and then I'll create a
Yes.
report for you that
Hmm.
essentially lays out, here's my environment as it stands. Here's my workflows as they stand. Here are some holes in my game. Here's ways that I can improve. And here's a roadmap for the future, including low cost, no cost options. And then, of course, options for how you can utilize tooling and solutions that can radically change your environment. One of the
Hmm.
common talk tracks that we get into is like, how are we going to present this data in a meaningful way to a non-technical person who's only thinking about the finances? Because you're
Yes.
going from a CapEx world to an operational expense. And if you're not prepared for that, that number can be shocking. This is a common conversation in credit unions, by the way. They're
Hmm.
shocked initially by the operational expense that goes into a CX solution. Now, if you actually do a TCO analysis of the total and complete telecom spend, then you know what, it's a wash. And
Right.
the math totally makes sense. So that's something that we also help with. I would say that it's really crucial or important that you include key stakeholders in this decision-making process. So, are you talking to the person that's in charge of IT, whether it's the CIO, CTO, or the IT director? That
Hmm.
person is going to be heavily engaged or involved in this process. For example, historically, these solutions have been premise-based. Who's going to control that spending for a premise-based world? Well, it's the person in charge of IT because this is
Hmm.
a network tool or the network team runs it, they implement it, they manage it day to day. It's coming out of their budget. You've got to have the IT leader bought in and they've got to share your vision for how this can improve the overall environment because they're
Right.
going to have some work to do and it's going to take some hours out of their day to complete this migration. You got to have them keyed in and bought in. Your CMO, whoever's in charge of marketing, needs to be aware of this project as well because there are key benefits that they can take advantage of as well from selling new services to your members. There's a lot of acquisition M&A activity inside of credit unions as well. You want to be proactive about that messaging so that you can ensure that your members are up to date on the changes that are taking place in their world. That means that you retain more members and you can sell them more services. So your CMO's got to be included, whoever's in charge of marketing. And then from there, people like collections, your loan department, these are all mechanisms that benefit from a modern contact center tool. So collections inside of a credit union typically is going to get a new list a couple of times a day, a couple of times a week, and they've got to call through those for delinquent notices. Well, you know
Mhm.
what? Modern dialers really changed the entire game
Yes.
for collections. You got to have
Hmm.
looped in. And then from there, whoever's in charge of data analytics for your credit union, you want their buy-in because you're going to have key integrations through custom integrations or APIs that are going to change your entire life. So those integrations with a CX tool and your core banking solution, like a Jack Henry or a Fiserv, I can't tell you how important that integration is. It will be a game changer for a ton of reasons.
Wow. Wow. I get to tell you for the audience, listen, there was a lot of useful information in that. So don't worry if you need to pause, go back, listen to it, catch up to us later. Because there was a lot in there that I think will really help um give specific points to a person to be able to go make their case. So I appreciate that. I do want to touch on in case there's some more that you want to expound on the end that you said about the integrations. I know you mentioned Jack Henry. Since this is an industry breakdown, are there others that other pieces of software or integrations or applications that are important to this industry? And maybe if you can, just from your experience, the level of integration that's available on some of them. Because if I'm if I'm a manager in a contact center and I have one, I may not know that I can actually get integrated to a certain point with it. I know in our space, people often say, "Oh, well, I have a Salesforce integration." That's not specific to Fiserv, but you know what I mean. In regular, but that means a lot of different things. Salesforce has a lot of different ways you can integrate with them, and depending on your level and the product of theirs you have, the integration means different things. So can you share a little bit about the integrations on the banking and credit union side?
Yeah, great question. So the devil's in the details, right? There's nuance that goes into the type of integration, much to your Salesforce point. Salesforce is a massive ecosystem, and there's tons of integrations that exist, right? Hundreds or thousands of potential integrations that you can take advantage of. Much is true in relation to those core banking solutions. So think of a core banking solution as your CRM. It's your source of truth. Like
Mm-hmm.
your primary user data lives in that core banking tool. But that core banking solution is nothing like CRM. Like in some ways a poor tool in terms of notation and setting next steps. That's why that CX solution becomes such a pivotal part of the overall solution stack because you're
Mm-hmm.
going to take that crucial end user data and you're going to massage it and bring it to life. There are three primary types of integrations for core banking tools. There's obviously your out of the box implementation. Some vendors have those for the major brands in the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
There are tons of middleware. There's an entire ecosystem of middleware vendors that exist.
Wow.
And then there are custom, which is just what it sounds like. We're going to write a fixed fee scope of work, do an in-depth discovery, and then we're going to launch an engagement to create the specific integration that you're looking for. These are key for a couple of reasons. In fact, we've seen some end users opt in credit union land opt not to do an integration with their core banking tool out of the gate. And then within 12 months, they come back and they make that magic happen.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you want to screen pop basic data for your agent about that member, you've got to complete this integration because all that data lives in core banking tool.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when a member calls in, of course, Brandon, we want that agent to understand what their name is, their address, their phone number. We'd love it to authenticate as well, which that's a whole
Right.
nother can of worms. And we instantaneously want to see notes around what were their last transactions? Why did they call? What was their last support engagement like? I just want to give my agent
Mm-hmm.
basic data, right? So they can immediately take action and let that end user know, like, I know who you are. I understand some of your previous needs and concerns, and I'm here to help. Think about how much time that saves because I'm not having to toggle between 4 or 5 different applications or go search the end user's data. I just wasted 30 seconds of time, right?
Right.
That matters in CX land. So I'm going to shorten my call times. I'm going to resolve that user's needs much, much faster. And I'm just going to create an overall much more positive experience for the end user, the member, and
Mm-hmm.
agent as well. So it's actually going to help my attrition rates for my agents because I'm giving them better tooling that they can take advantage of.
I like that. Yeah, I like that because that's I love the fact that your explanation and reasoning wasn't heavily technical because I feel like the conversation you just had is a conversation that a leader, in the credit union should be able to have,
Yeah.
and you can certainly help them with that. But I think those are points that resonate. Um, is there anything before I get to the last the wrap question, which is on advice, and you get to share a nugget of anything you want. Before I get to that, when we look at in industries, we always look at the trajectory, right? And we talk about those. We always look at how it's trending. Are there any and if there's none, there's none because I'm going to put you on the spot. But are are there any glaring or alarming any dangers to the credit union the banking industry that are on the horizon? Any impending thing that could have a negative impact in that space?
Yeah. You've got a ton of credit unions that are on really old platforms, whether it's a
Mhm.
premise-based PBX or it's a really, really old core banking solution, right? Uh,
Wow.
this is another way of saying technical debt. Like you
Mm.
have to be honest about your technical debt because it has a meaningful impact on your future and the decisions that you can make moving forward. So, for example, there's a ton of end of life PBX solutions out there, right? And
Mhm.
I'm watching credit unions, banks, FinServe organizations march toward that end of life date, and they're not giving themselves enough time to go execute.
Ah,
So
okay.
let's have a really transparent conversation about how long it reasonably takes you to execute on one of these solutions. You need at least 3 months. In fact, I'd say 6 months to do your
Mhm.
discovery, both internally and gather information from key stakeholders, understand your own tribal knowledge as an organization and hurdles that you've had in the past.
Mhm.
To have a good understanding of what your ecosystem from a technology perspective looks like, so you can measure your tech debt. Um, and once you have all that information about yourself, you can go have an honest review with vendors that offer compelling modern solutions. And you need to be able to grade and score those without placing bias on the vendors. You can
Mhm.
choose what is ultimately the best possible solution for you. You need to give yourself at least 6 months for that,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
if you want
Yeah.
to implement that, you're going to need at least 6 months to run through that implementation.
Okay. So one of the biggest challenges then is, I mean, I'm just going by some of the experiences I've had. I doubt if the leaders are thinking that far ahead on the potential changes, and how long it would take and what's involved in it. So that's a really good point. That's a tremendous point. I appreciate that one.
Yeah,
Um,
take your time and move slow.
yeah, yeah, and make conscious decisions, um, and certainly utilize someone like yourself, because given the nature of the industry, I would, and it's not a knock against you guys, but I doubt that there's a large number of you that are keeping up with all the technological advances that are happening in the world. So I think it behooves you to talk to Daniel and company about how they can help you. And speaking of that, I always like to wrap my podcast sessions, Daniel, with some practical advice, and I take this back to when I was running a contact center, and I always tell people I didn't know what I didn't know, and I always felt like I could have moved faster if I had some advice from some people that knew what was going on. So it could be about something we've talked about so far. It could be about something completely off the grid. But as the subject matter expert, what's one or two nuggets or takeaways, bits of advice that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, we're in a period of time where it's very difficult to hire and retain agents in the contact center,
Mm-hmm.
especially in credit unions and banks, uh, because you're talking about people's money and they inherently can get frustrated, right? Like,
Yes, yes.
something's wrong with your money, Brandon. I know
Yeah,
you're
I'm
customer
calling you upset.
contact
I'm
center
sorry.
agent.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm calling you upset. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with the rep, but I'm not happy,
Yeah.
that I got to call you. I mean, think about it. I don't, whether it's a credit union or a bank, as a customer, I don't call my bank to say, "Hey, things are great,
Yeah.
good looking out."
Yeah.
No, if I call you, there's a problem, and if it's my money, it's a problem I'm upset about. People are
Bingo.
emotional about money. You can't. There's no way around that.
Exactly. So, as a result, we need to give our agents the best possible chance for success that they can get. There's some crazy stats out there, like the industry has a 45% attrition rate, and that goes up. Two-thirds of contact center agents report that they've got mental health issues
Wow.
because of the way they've been treated.
Yeah.
Customers
Yes.
or members, right?
It's
Like,
sad. Oh,
people get
sad.
really frustrated by this thing. So I've got some practical tips for how you can make life better for your agents because that matters too. If you can boost agent morale, you've just boosted your customer experience. You've
Yeah.
retained more customers, and I bet you're making more money. If there's a mundane, repetitive task, automate that thing and get it off the plate of your
Mhm.
agent. Whether that's a RPA, robotic process automation task that's independent of a CX tool, or if you just migrate to a darn modern CCaaS solution, you can automate so many workflows and give your agent their time back. Maybe you can reduce staffing. You know what, Brandon? We've got so much volume happening in contact center land and so many things happening at once. I'm not so sure that the primary goal is to reduce staff, but it's
Right.
to actually give your agents the advantage so they can get more done and be much more productive, cut down on the human error, and increase their overall success.
Mhm.
Automate, 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 and that's what the modern tooling can do for you.
I appreciate that. Especially that part about the reduction in staff. I know there's a lot of, especially when you talk credit unions, because they are community-based organizations who support their members. They're not going to be jumping at the idea of laying people off or reducing staff. I think it's important for people to know that a lot of the technology that you're talking about doesn't necessarily mean an immediate reduction in staff because of the volume that's in the industry. It means and should mean a reprioritization of what those people are doing. So your human being, which is your most expensive asset, should be addressing your most complex issues. And like you said, automate your mundane ones. So you're not losing the people. You're just utilizing them in the best way possible. And to your point, you're increasing their morale. So they're happier. Duh, if they're happier, they're more likely to make your customer happier. It's not
Yeah.
rocket science, you know.
Yeah, that's right. And it's
So,
not like we need less people in the contact center in terms of agents, right? You're going to know this stat. I'm preaching to the choir here. What percentage of calls are actually monitored and scored if you don't have a modern solution, right? It's less than 2 to 3%, right? It's
exactly.
because we just don't have time.
Right.
You
That's
can't,
exactly right.
yeah, yeah. This is not a question of do we need less staff. This is how do we actually get the most utilization out of the people that we
100%.
have, and we improve the best resources that we have, our people, and we do so with the most important data that we have as an organization, our member and client data.
Yes.
It's gold, so we need to use it well.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Man, you know this space, huh? You know that you
I
know,
love credit unions and banks. They're one of my
yeah.
favorites. Yeah, it's my
I,
favorite.
I love it, man. I love how you also gave a human side to the industry because we are doing industry breakdowns, and sometimes you can tend to get, technical or statistical and a bunch of numbers. But I love how you put a face, in my opinion, to the credit unions, and hopefully those credit unions that are out there understand and know we feel your pain,
Yeah.
and there are things that can help. So, Daniel, first of all, thank you for being here. I know you're busy because you're working a busy industry, but I appreciate your time. Um, and to our audience out there, in the body below, you will see all of Daniel and White Oak's contact information, so you can reach out to them and continue the conversation. Ask your questions. You don't have to wait until you have an issue or an opportunity. That's what the subject matter experts are for. And I appreciate you spending time with us on CXpert Share. We'll have another expert and another topic coming up for you soon. Thanks for joining us.